Hi, this is a bonus episode for you. It's a recording of a YouTube live that I did the other day looking at the case of the murder of Michael Gaine in Ireland. So, because it's a recording of a live, you can't interact in the live chat, but I will set up a poll here for you so you can vote on what you think of the story of Michael Kelley. Enjoy the episode. Hello, and welcome to Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. It's great to have you here because what we do is look at the words and only the words of the person talking. I try and get rid of everything else that I can think of, anything else I know, to avoid bias, and just look at the words, because inside those words, that's where you will find possible truth, possible deception, and the motivations of a person too. And this is live, so welcome along. If you are live, do get involved. One of the reasons I want to do this live is because I really value the comments in the live chat, and the questions in the live chat, and the observations in the live chat as well. So if you are taking part live, do get involved. It'd be great to hear from you. Also, we have a poll up and running on the whether you believe the story that we're going to look at just now. So we will be able to check in on that and see how it's going. So do have a vote in the poll if you are watching too. If you're part of the replay crew, great to have you along. Or if you're listening to this on podcast, just get involved in the comments if you can, or get in touch on social media around this story too. So let's delve into the story. And it's one from Ireland, and it is about Michael Gaine. Michael is a guy on the right, if you can see. Michael is a farmer, and that's in Kerry in Ireland. And he was reported missing on March the 20th this year. Just recently, the police who've been investigating this found body parts on the farm that Michael has, including in a slurry tank. So a really gruesome case. These body parts have been identified as Michael Gaine's now. And the police have questioned the guy on the left of the screen. He's called Michael Kelley. Michael Kelley is American. I believe he's an ex-Marine, although potentially there's a bit of fantasism going on there with the guys. We'll see as we go through his words. They've released him. They've questioned him. I think he was arrested, and he's given an interview to the local press in Ireland. I think the Irish Mirror. I've linked to a YouTube in the show notes if you want to actually listen to the interview. It's been recorded, and hear how this guy sounds. But however, he is going to deny all involvement, and I think I've got to make that very, very clear. But the interview is completely bizarre. Just before we get looked into the words, let's just have a look at some of the comments that we've got going on. Hello to Dan, the analyst, who has become a YouTube member on the exclusive level. So you will be getting something very interesting not long away once I can work on that around the case that I've been doing on the Chris Watts case. So look forward to that. And thank you for being a member, Dan. Hello to Mick, who says, unless there's chain marks, this will never be solved. Let's hope the case is solved, although it's going to take something based on what I've read. And Sarah says, I don't believe him. So she's coming in early with her thoughts on this. And let's see if you are right, Sarah, as we dive into the words of Michael Kelley. So the interview starts with, you were arrested. You are a suspect in this case. I want to ask you about that. How do you feel about that? And his answer is, it's an ongoing observation. It's an ongoing investigation, and so commenting on it would probably be incautious. Now, there's a non-answer. He doesn't tell us how he feels about that, so he is avoiding the question straight away. I've got some markers, maybe not of deception, but markers of the fact that this is causing him stress and this is causing him some discomfort because he doesn't say how he feels about it. It's an ongoing investigation, and so commenting on it would probably be incautious, he says. There probably qualifies that. So is it incautious? Does he really feel it would be incautious, or is it just probably incautious? He's not very committed to what he's saying there. So I do think already answer number one, and I'm going, there's something a bit more going on with this guy. And watch that word incautious that he uses, because he's going to use that a lot, and we'll talk about that as we go. The journalist then says to him, but it's kind of, I suppose, well known in the public sphere that you are the man that lived with Mr. Gaine, that you lived on the land with him, you know. It's been suggested that you're a suspect and that you were interviewed by the Gardaí. And if you are watching and you're not from Ireland, I hope I get this right. Sheila in the comments will keep me right. Gardaí is the police and the guards are policemen as we come through this. So it's been suggested that you were interviewed by the police is what that means. Michael Kelley's answer is, well, that is a matter of record. Now, he started the answer with well, which is red flag. I'm not going to answer your question. I'm going to give you something else. We use that in conversation. We just do that well. It's just a little marker to say that I'm not going to answer your question. You're going to get a bit of an explanation instead. When someone starts an answer with well, red flag that something more is going on. Thank you, Sheila, who says, yes, you're right, Jack, around the Gardaí being the police force and the guards being the policemen in Ireland. So, well, that is a matter of record. Is distancing from that question. That question could have been answered very easily by just saying, yes, I have, or no, I haven't, or I don't want to talk about that, no comment. But instead, what we're getting from him is, well, that is a matter of record. And we've got a stutter there. You'll notice that is a matter of record. This guy stutters quite a bit. Now, when we stutter, it can indicate we've got nerves, or it can indicate we're thinking very carefully about what it is that we're going to say. And we haven't quite formed the words that we want to use yet. So we'll repeat ourselves and say that phrase again. That is a matter of record. What is going on there with the guy? Listen, I'm just looking at the chat. Great to see so many people from Ireland in there. Over in Ireland, Michael Kelley definitely distancing there from the pointed question that's put to him that you live with Mr. Gaine, the guy who's been murdered, and it's been suggested that you're a suspect and that you've been interviewed by the Gardaí. And he says, well, that is a matter of record. He doesn't answer the question properly there. He pulls in a bit of distance between himself and the question. And what did you say to the guards is the next question. And he says, well, of course, but that's all. Sorry, the question is, and did you say anything to the guards? And he says, well, of course, but that's all stuff that's privileged between the guards and solicitor and myself. So again, he starts with well. So did you say anything to the guards? That's a yes or no question again. One of those questions in conversation, you might expect yeah, I told them I had nothing to do with this. Or no, I didn't say anything to them. I was no comment all the way. Yes would probably be the most expected one, but no would be a legitimate answer there. And instead, he doesn't say yes or no. He just says, well, of course, but that's all stuff that's privileged between the guards and solicitor and myself. Of course, there is a convincing line. It is something to gain authority when you're answering a question. Of course, how could you be so stupid to answer that question? Your questions are a little bit dumb. You're asking the obvious questions. Of course, I said something. So he's trying to gain some authority there with that. Of course, it's also like, don't question me any further on this. It's a stupid question. So look, we're a couple of questions in. This guy's really shutting down and closing down there. The journalist then goes on to say, I'll be fair to you, sir. Do you deny any involvement in the murder of Mr. Gaine? And the reply is yes. Now, this is a yes-no question, and he does give a yes. He says yes to that question. Do you deny any involvement in the murder of Mr. Gaine? Now, yes is fairly reliable. It's a yes-no question, and he says yes. So I am down with the fact that he does that, and I'm down with the fact that he says yes. But a little small point here is that it's not, were you involved in the murder of Mr. Gaine? And it's a no. It's, do you deny any involvement in the murder of Mr. Gaine? So it's slightly distant and it's slightly removed from, did you murder Mr. Gaine? It's, do you deny any involvement in the murder of Mr. Gaine? Well, if this guy is guilty of it, then he is going to deny any involvement in the murder of Mr. Gaine. And if he's innocent, he's going to give the exact same answer. So really, this answer, although reassuring, although it's a yes to a yes and no question, it doesn't give me a whole lot of comfort that he is denying involvement in the murder. He's saying, I'm not involved in the murder. The next question, and do you understand that the Gardaí are at the moment treating you as a suspect, or do you think that they are? And his answer is, listen, man, that's a matter of record. So look, we have no answer there at all to that. It's just that's a matter of record. Well, is it yes or is it no? Why are you creating all this distance and just shoving him off to the record, if you like? And also that, listen, man, that's a matter of record. That's another one of these things to say that we have some authority going on here that, listen, That's a matter of record. It's trying to gain this upper hand here. It's trying to say to the guy, be careful of the questions you're asking me, because I think I'm going to treat them as if they are all a little bit stupid there. So here we go. Already getting all the red flags here from the way he's answering. The journalist then goes on to ask, well, it's a matter of record that they are treating you as a suspect, and it's a question. There's an inflection in his voice there. It's a matter of record that they are treating you as a suspect. And his reply is, well, what they're doing is a matter of records. Who their suspects are is a matter of record. So we've got the well once more, which is just his standard way of doing it. So every time he's answered one of these questions, I'm just getting, he's super sensitive about the questions that he is being asked. He's using this well, which is, I'm going to give you something that is an explanation. It's not an answer to the question, and I'm flagging it up because I'm using that word well, and what they're doing is a matter of record. Who their suspects are is a matter of record. I did notice that he did say who their suspects are is a matter of record. Suspects plural is what he said. Now, I do not know of any further suspects than Michael Kelley in this case. I don't even actually know if he's formally been named by the police as a suspect, and he's not helping us out here at all. There's no anger in him and saying, yeah, I'm a suspect, but I didn't do it. There's no denial that he's a suspect. He's just avoiding all of these questions. But suspects plural, very interested in that one. The journalist says to him, do you accept that you're a suspect? And he says, do you know who I am? And the journalist says, I do, of course, Mr. Kelley, yes. So then why you ask? Is anyone any the wiser into the words of Michael Kelley as to whether he is a suspect or not? He does not want to confirm that one bit. But also, what would be really easy, you ask me, am I a suspect in this murder? My answer is no, I'm not a suspect. So I think we can take that as a yes. But really, what we have here is just this huge distance between the questions he's been asked and the answers that he's given. He just will not answer this question. The journalist says to him, I think your perspective on it is important. And he says, but whether or not I'm a suspect is not a matter of perspective. It's a matter of public record. If you have it, right. So listen, he's got a safety phrase here, which is it's a matter of record, or it's a matter of public record, if you have it right, which is just something that he's just relying on here. He thinks, so maybe he feels, maybe it is giving him safety, but really it is showing that he does consider himself a suspect because he's not denying that fact. And it shows that he's very, very distant from all of this. So far, when we've looked at it in this introduction part, if you like, of the interview, I have seen no lies. I haven't seen any lies whatsoever, but sometimes the truth is not the whole truth. Sometimes we hide things through omission, but he will not engage in the question around whether he is a suspect. And also, he's keeping it very safe. He talks about this in cautious way of doing things. And also, he just relies back on this phrase. Now, let's have a look at some of the things that you guys are saying before we move on. Sheila says storytelling. Yeah, that well, here comes an explanation. I'm going to we do, it's very natural, but that well at the beginning of an answer just says, I'm going to give you something else, an explanation, a story. I'm not going to answer your question, or if I do, it's going to be in a very roundabout, circuitous way. Sarah says that he is a bad liar, in my opinion. Sarah, stick with this because I think we're going to see just what kind of person, what kind of truth or deception it is that he's saying. And thank you, Sinead, for this one. The journalist stated that he was expecting Kelley to shut down the conversation, so he just asked what he could. Questions could have been asked better. I'm not knocking the guy. Number one, Michael Kelley looks scary to me, so I would be a bit worried about confronting him. And number two, I think, this is a guy who's not playing ball. You've got to expect the guy was going to be hostile if you're going to ask these questions. Look, you might well think that this guy potentially has murdered someone, so ain't no way I want to get too close to all of this. Let's carry on then. And the next section, the journalist says, what do you think happened to Mr. Gaine? And Michael Kelley's response is, it would be incautious for me to comment on an ongoing investigation in accordance with the advice of my solicitor under, and then there's something unclear. If you actually do go to the link and listen to what the interview sounds like, it's recorded somewhere like a market or something like that. So it is Black Widow. Thank you for your comment. I will save that for later. It's very busy, so some of this is a little bit unclear. Sometimes I've taken a best guess at the words. I'll let you know when they are. If I just cannot make them out, I'm going to tell you it's unclear. Okay, but he was a friend of yours. Is that fair to say? And Michael Kelley says yes. So in that little section there, we have this incautious again. It would be incautious for me to comment. And then we've got this kind of officious phrase. He's gone very formal. It would be incautious for me to comment on an ongoing investigation in accordance with the advice of my solicitor. So very formal language, which sometimes people deploy formal language to sound more believable than they are, to sound more authoritative than they are. And you can see he really is trying to build some authority in the way that he talks, in the way he talks slightly down to the interviewer at times. And here is another one. It would be incautious for me to comment on an ongoing investigation in accordance with the advice on my solicitor. Now, what I do think he's doing here is he's borrowing authority. Lena, who is in the chat, brought that to my attention. The borrowing authority phrase, I think, is great, which is, hey, it's not my choice not to talk. Look, if it was down to me, guys, I'd just be talking to you free and easy and telling you everything that's going on here. However, someone else has told me not to. Not my fault. It's someone else. So it's the advice of my solicitor there. Now, do remember that phrase, incautious. He does not want to be incautious. In fact, he wants to be very, very, very cautious. And you'll find that strange, I think, as we go on. Okay, he was a friend of yours. That's fair to say. The answer is yes. Finally, I've got something from this guy that I like, that he was, or he thinks it's fair to say that Michael Gaine was a friend of his, which is shown there in words. It's a yes, no question. He was a friend of yours. That fair to say? It's a yes, no question. And he gives us a very straight yes. And then the interviewer says, and I imagine you mourn his loss. Now, there's no answer heard there, which is not to say there wasn't an answer. I just did not hear an answer. If he didn't answer that question, then that's a bit strange, but I don't know whether he answered that or not. Does this whole thing been upsetting for you? I think maybe that was, has this whole thing been upsetting for you? He says, yes. Again, I believe that he has had upset over the death of Michael Gaine. You got to think again, though, guilty or innocent, these things would be upsetting. Innocent, my God, my friend, the guy I work for has been murdered. That's upsetting. Guilty, I'm in a lot of trouble. That's upsetting. And you obviously are denying any involvement. And he says, yes, but I'll tell you again, it's that qualified way of he's denying any involvement. Not, did you do it? That's not a yes, no question to that. He's asked, why do you think they're looking at you? He says, because I lived there. Again, that's straightforward. You can't really argue with that. He is being looked at by the police because he lived there. I'm sure, like with any investigation, they're going to start with the people that were closest to Michael Gaine to see if there are any connections to the murder there. And one of those people would be someone that worked with him, who lived on his land every single day. But, this is straightforward. And it's very good when looking at someone's words to find some things where things that they're not going to argue with, or things that are really true. It's great when someone's asked their name or their address or something like that. You just see a very quick, straightforward answer, like, because I lived there. And then we can see when other times they talk, when they don't follow that format, when the answers are anything but straightforward, when the answers are anything but the question they were asked, when the questions are very long or start with a well. So it's great to get some of these things, but which I feel are truthful answers there. The journalist then says, and I'm sorry to ask you this, but I'm being 100% fair because it's in the headlines. I haven't written it, but it's been written that the very gruesome circumstances in which Mr. Gaine died, in fact, he was dismembered. Are you aware of that? And the answer is, I'm aware that the police claim that, but I have not seen the evidence to that effect. I've seen only that they've recovered body parts from inside the slurry tank. Let's break that one down, because this one is damn interesting. So once more, we got a yes/no question, and he doesn't say yes or no, and he gives a longer and more convoluted answer here. So why is he not saying yes, I'm aware of that? No, I wasn't aware of that. Why is he basically telling us a bit of a story, giving us an explanation? I'm aware that the police claim that. And then he says, but I have not seen the evidence to that effect. Now, if you hear that the first time, you might be thinking, what he's saying is, I haven't seen any evidence to that effect, or there's nothing to prove that. But he's saying, I haven't seen the evidence to that effect, which is saying that the evidence does exist. It's the evidence to that effect. It's not any evidence to that effect. It's the evidence, suggesting in his head, he thinks that the evidence that Michael Gaine was dismembered does exist. I think that's a very revealing phrase there that he, and by the way, I should say that I think this was done at the time before Michael Gaine had been identified that his was the body or the body parts that were discovered on the farm and in the slurry tank. But Michael Kelley, does think that there is evidence to reflect that fact that it was Mr. Gaine. And that he was dismembered. He says, I've seen only that they recovered body parts from inside the slurry tank. Now, I'm going to deal with the first of all, which is something that this guy seems to do before mentioning very sensitive things. It can be a stutter, or there can be an or an ah, and body parts very potentially is a sensitive thing. But what we get from him is body parts, almost as if it's hard for him to say body parts. And then he says from inside the slurry tank. And again, that's showing a closeness. It's very much like the evidence. It's as if he knows the slurry tank. Now, maybe there was only one slurry tank there on the farm, but it's the slurry tank. Body parts from inside the slurry tank. It just shows closeness to that slurry tank. He carries on. But I have not seen that those body parts have been identified as Michael Gaine. Now, that, again, just let me reiterate, this interview was done before Michael Gaine was identified as the body parts. But I have not seen that those body parts have been identified as Michael Gaine, suggests that he will, that he can see. So, again, to me, a couple of things there. And remember the context that this was not publicly announced at this point, that these were Michael Gaine's body parts. Certainly possible in his language that he has foresight, that there is the evidence and that it will be able to see that these body parts have been identified as Michael Gaine. He then says they're said to be, but they haven't yet been identified. So here's another thing saying yet. So when we say something hasn't happened yet, it means we fully expect that it's possible, at the very least, that it will happen in the future. Likely that it will happen in the future. I haven't had my snack yet, means that I am going to have it. But we've got a yet here. Look, three things there that said to me he has knowledge that these body parts are Michael Gaine's. He then says, right, so we have body parts. Now that right, again, I think is part of this attempt to get authority. Right, get an agreement, just saying this is all right. So we have body parts. Who's we? That suggests him. We have body parts. He's part of we. And so, again, just this answer here, I think, very revealing, but we don't know whether they're Michael Gaine's. Now, I want you to remember that line for later. If you remember nothing else from this whole answer, and I think you should, because things like the evidence, not seen, yet being identified are very, very telling. But we don't know whether they're Michael Gaine's. Two things. He doesn't say, I don't know whether they're Michael Gaine's. Is this we have body parts? We don't know. But I do want you to remember, he says, we don't know if they are Michael Gaine's. And I was not shown any evidence of that. Then there's something unclear. But again, you're denying involvement in what happened here. He's asked, and he says yes. So in this extract here, he's now being less safe. Do you see that? He's now... this is something that happened. It's really, really hard to keep up a pretense for a long time. So you may start off with this no comment, but something will goad you, or something will come to your mind that you think is a smart thing to say, and you will get out of this rut of just going, yes, well, and all those things. And he's starting to talk a lot more now there. So he seems to be delaying things, but he's very open to those being Michael Gaine's body parts. Let's have a look in at your comments so far. Black Widow says, I wouldn't chat to him in a busy Tesco. He's an odd guy. I think I might be avoiding him as well. Sheila agrees. I certainly wouldn't cross him. Sinead says, Kelley comes across very poorly. He's not the full shilling. And another one from Sinead, he's unstable, very hard to get a gauge on him. Journalists said people are comparing him to Ian Bailey. Kelley didn't know who Ian Bailey was. I see, Sinead, I see a lot of similarities with Ian Bailey in the way that this operates. Right. Thank you for being here. If you haven't liked this, then please do. It helps it get out to a whole load more people. It helps this get out to people who are interested in the case, or to people who may be into understanding how to decode someone's words, how to think about what they're saying in a different way from just accepting the impression that we want to get. So if you like that, please, it helps get, if you like the video, press the like button, then it helps us get out to any more people. Subscribe as well. If you can, that means you will get more like this as soon as they drop. And please share this with anyone that you think is interesting. Shall we get, oh, by the way, I meant to say, talking of Ian Bailey, inside the archives, I do a podcast on Ian Bailey called The Words of West Cork. It's actually on the murder of Sophie Toscan de Plantier. So it looks at Ian Bailey a lot, also his partner at the time, Jules, and other people who were around West Cork at the time of the murder of Sophie Toscan de Plantier. You will find that in my podcast section if you like a bit of Irish murder mystery and the tragic story of Sophie Toscan de Plantier. Let's carry on with Mr. Kelley. The journalist says to him, how long have you been living in Mr. Gaine's land? He says, about 3 weeks. Now, that is unclear, but that's my best guess. It's not very relevant. May I ask how that came about, how you met him? And the answer is, I was between jobs and I was looking for work and I was canvassing. I was already in the neighborhood and I was canvassing different farms, just knocking doors and looking for jobs. And then there's something there that's unclear. The only thing I want to point out there is how this guy, who we've all said, certainly he's not living a conventional lifestyle. He has not lived a conventional life. He is involved in a murder inquiry and so on, and he still manages to use that classic euphemism and downplaying of saying instead of saying I was unemployed or out of work, I was between jobs, is the way that he says it. So even with all this stress on him, he still thinks of the image and uses the phrase I was between jobs. He's then asked, and he let you in? Yes, he was good to you. And the reply is, he was okay. Red flag right there. He was okay. Now, I've got some thoughts on this, that the things that Michael Kelley is not denying, he's very good on sticking to facts. And when facts are there, we get short answers, even if he tells us that's a matter of record, that's a matter of record. So it'd be really easy at this point to take all the heat off and just go, yeah, we got on great, or he was good to me. But no, he was okay. So that says to me that there is an issue between them. There has been an issue. Maybe even he's downplaying he was okay. Maybe he hated him. And saying he's okay is just a way of saying it. But it strikes me that was there some trouble between Michael Gaine and Michael Kelley? And that's a matter of record that other people know about it. And therefore, it's not in Michael Kelley's interest to lie about this, because if he says everything was fine and we got on great and it's discovered that it's out there that they had a bit of beef going on, he looks like a liar and he looks like he was hiding something. So is this why he says he was okay? I really think something has happened between them. Just to say, things happen between people all the time. There are people that I think are okay. I have not murdered them. But this does say to me, something went on between these guys. He was okay, yes, he says. What do you mean, says the journalist? Great question. I've seen some people there saying the journalist was having a bit of a hard time, but this is a great question. When you get an answer like that, yeah, pile on in and say it was okay. And he says, I think it would be incautious to elaborate further, but my statement is that he was okay. So avoidance of the question right there. So he's not going to go any further in why he thinks he was okay, but he does feel the need to say it. We have the incautious again. He doesn't want to elaborate further, which says he can. It's not just that he was okay. just I didn't know him that long. It was neither good nor bad. No, what we've got here is my statement is that he was okay, but he does say that he can elaborate there. But something was wrong between them. The journalist keeps pushing. And he says, did you have any difficulties with him? And this is a yes/no question. And what do you get from that? Based on the advice of my solicitor, I'm going to have to decline the comment. Well, what do you think? Show of hands right now. Did Michael Kelley have difficulties with Michael Gaine? Like I said, I'm not saying this means he is guilty of murder or anything like that at all, but it's really easy to see here that saying he was okay, and really easy to see here that he's saying, I'm going to decline the comment. There were some difficulties between the two of them. The journalist goes on to ask, do you accept that you might be arrested again? And he says, I accept that I probably will be questioned again. So he doesn't answer the question. Do you accept that you might be arrested again? And he says, then I think they will be questioned again. What would you say then? And he says, it would be incautious to make a statement on a legal case to a person I haven't even seen identified, much less a guard, much less it's. Now, this is pure nerves coming here, because it starts with the and then it would be incautious to make a statement on a legal case to a person I haven't even seen identified, much less a guard, much less and he runs out of reasons why he can't talk and starts stuttering, and it's nerves coming through there for sure. And again, one of the really hard things about deception is covering off every base. So you might think, I've got my, and I'm not saying this is what's happened here, but this could be what's happened here. I've got my story. I know where I was when. I know what it is that I want to say. Oh, and they might ask me what color car was I driving, and I was driving a blue car. And then someone throws a curveball that you haven't covered off. The thought process behind that is immense, because you very quickly, to give a convincing answer, is that what you have to do is create your answer in your head. Not easy to do. Then you've got to check that answer you've created with the story you've told already, the lie you've told already. Then you've got to create that lie, make sure that it fits with the facts as people know them, all in seconds, half a second. And it's really, really stressful to do. So is that what we are seeing here? It's an unplanned question. It's something he doesn't have an answer to, which is why he's just leaning back on what's comfortable for him. It would be incautious to make a statement. Then, I don't even know you. And then, all spluttering out there. The journalist says to him, well, look, you're going to be in the news no matter what. So I'm trying to be fair to you, And he says, well, then you're also doing your job as a journalist. And I respect that. Also, I think he's starting to fray a bit now, from the how did you get on question. That seems to have upset him a little bit from that point when he was asked, how did you get on? And it was okay. He's starting to just fray round the edges. The journalist says to him, where are you from? Maine. There's one of those great questions, like how do people talk when it's the truth? One word answers, very quick answers. Where are you from? Maine. How did you come here? I think it's on an asylum basis. The word asylum is definitely mentioned there, but I think it's on an asylum basis. An asylum basis, he says, yes. 3 years ago, 7. 7 years ago, okay, so you've been effectively homeless. And he says, yes. And he's asked, okay, do you have any family or anybody? And the answer here, I think, is very instructive about what happened. He says, yes, I left behind a house, family, everything. Look at the question that he was asked. Do you have any family or anybody? And he doesn't mention family. First of all, the first thing he mentions he left behind is the house. And then the family. And then a very generic everything. The order we mention things can be very revealing. House here, the house he left behind seems to be more important to him than the family that he left behind. House is a key thing to Michael Kelley. Talking of family, he's asked, do any of them know you've been arrested? He says, yes. And he's asked, what do they make of it? And he says, I can't answer for them and what they make of it. Now, this was a shout from Lena as well. So thank you very much for this, Lena. If this guy was a US Marine, did he have some training in interrogation avoidance or dealing with it because, well, look, I've done the other thing. I've trained politicians in my time back in the day. And one of the things that we taught them to do was, number one, facts. Don't deny facts. So anything where you could be proved wrong if you say the opposite, just don't deny those facts. Don't make up facts or anything like that. And the other one was don't speculate. So if it was, what do you think the Prime Minister is going to do next week? Do not answer that question because it's speculation. And this seems to be going the same way. He doesn't deny facts. He might distance himself from facts, but he really does settle down with the facts. And then when he's asked, what did they make of it? That's a classic media training in my world, but classic potentially resistance to interrogation training of don't talk to speculation. What do you think the army's going to do next? I can't answer that. I don't know that. It would be speculation. So has he had some training? And is that why we're seeing this authority there, this not getting involved in trying to twist facts or anything like that? And also when he said we were okay, don't get caught in a lie. Has he had some training here? He's asked, do you think there's someone else that's responsible for Mr. Gaine's murder? And he says, that's the obvious deduction, isn't it? Somebody is. Well, it's a yes-no question again, and he doesn't answer it properly. He doesn't say, yes, I do, or it's not me, so it must be someone else. He says, that's the obvious deduction, isn't it? So again, he's trying to give this authority. Hey, stupid question, journalist. Why are you asking me these stupid questions? Why are you asking me obvious questions? These answers are obvious. He says, that's the obvious deduction, isn't it? And by the way, very often not obvious questions. And then he says, somebody is. Somebody includes him. He doesn't say he's not involved here. He doesn't say that there is somebody else. He only says there is somebody. He's asked, do you accept that he was murdered? And he says, no, it's an alleged murder. What it is a missing persons case in which a man is missing, in which body parts have been found in the possession of that man. Right. Complicated. Very, very complicated. Very impersonal as well, because he doesn't talk about, my employer, the guy I knew, Michael Gaine, is missing. No, it's just a man is missing, and they have been found in the possession of that man, not Michael, because what he's about to say is where it all gets a little bit bizarre. He says, so those are Michael Gaine's body parts in that tank. Now, remember earlier, he said he didn't know whose they were. But listen, he's not saying that those body parts are the body parts of Michael Gaine. Oh, no. He says they're belonging to him. Maybe not of him, but they are his property. What? So earlier, we had body parts. Now, Michael has them, as in Michael Gaine has them, because they're his possession and his property. Now, earlier he said, we don't know they are his. And now he is saying, I do know they are his, even though he's wrapped it up in this technicality of it's they're his body parts because they're on his property, very much like my front door is my front door because it's on my property. He's wrapped it up in this technicality, but earlier he said, we don't know they are his, and now he's saying they are his. Then he says, so you understand those body parts in that tank are Michael Gaine's property. Okay, you understand that now. So twice he's using this, you understand, which again is this authority that he wants to give. I'm telling you what you understand. I'm telling you, you understand that now. So you're saying it might not necessarily be his remains is the question. And he says, right, but the remains are his property. Here, to me, it feels like he's covering up a slip he didn't make, as if he's said they are Michael Gaine's body parts, and then he's gone, oh no, earlier I said they weren't, but he just volunteers it. It just all comes out. And I notice as well, he calls them the remains. Now, obviously body parts are remains of someone, but again, the remains, not those remains, or something a little bit more distant, is suggesting that he has a bit of closeness, a bit of familiarity to those remains. Right, let's have a look through your comments. Sarah, I think he lived on the farm for 3 years, and I think that Kelley is an illegal immigrant. I have seen the illegal immigrant reported in the news. And then I think he lived on the farm for 3 years. I had 3 weeks in the transcript, but it was unclear. So 3 years is entirely possible. Anders, I think he slipped in the dismemberment questions. I thought it would be better to say that he hadn't heard any more about it. Completely agree. And then we have Sheila saying obvious to who. So that was in the, it's obvious that someone else has done it. Yeah, very often when someone uses that language, like it's obviously bum, 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 bum. It's not obvious. What they're trying to do is convince you that it's obvious. It's convincing language. Even though it's not obvious to you, many people will come away going, oh, no, if it's obvious, then I'm really stupid asking that question. So that is why these people use those words. And then Lena says he's slippery as an eel. Yeah, I think he might be. And Sheila again says he sounds controlling in the you understand comment. Yeah, I think there is a lot of controlling, Sheila, coming through in his words with this attempt to get this authority as he talks. Right. Let's get through into the next section, because if you thought it was bizarre so far, you heard nothing yet. Were you on the farm? You weren't on the farm when they were discovered, he's asked. He says, I was. Yes, once more. He's like being really right there on the factuals there. You were? Yes, he says. So again, he's just not denying those things. And how did you react to that, he's asked. And he says, they didn't disclose to me that they discovered it. I had to deduce it. As Lena says, he likes his deducing, he likes his deductions, but he doesn't, again, and this is another time he's asked a question about feelings. So I think earlier the question was, how did you feel when you were arrested? And this time it's, how did you react to the guy that was your employer, potentially for 3 years? Thank you for that one. How did you react to the fact that, the body remains were discovered and so on? He doesn't tell us. He just says, they didn't disclose to me that they discovered it. I had to deduce it. You had to deduce it? Yes. Okay, and what did you do then, he is asked. And he says, I lived my life. I mean, you understand, I was homeless other than that farmhouse. I lived my life? I mean, you understand, I was homeless other than that farmhouse. Now, that sounds cold. That sounds really, really cold. As well as we got on okay. I live my life. That sounds cold. I mean, you understand. We've got that authoritative, convincing language again. I was homeless other than that farmhouse. Now, have you noticed a theme of homes coming through in the words of Michael Kelley? He talked about going door to door to get jobs, not workplace to workplace, but door to door. He talked about home, the home that he'd left behind in America, came before family, and now he's telling us he was homeless other than that farmhouse. So homes, homelessness, very big theme with this guy. Okay, says the journalist. And I was there for 6 weeks of the investigation, and there are inconsistencies in their claims because they completely searched those tanks within the first week. What I picked up there was the plural of tank. Tanks is what he said. They completely searched those tanks within the first week. Now, remember, he talked about the tank. Something interesting there. Again, I think he has a hell of a lot to knowledge, inside knowledge, things that he maybe shouldn't know there. And he's going extra because he's just put to him, okay. And then he decides to tell us some other things, which is here, I think, building his defense that this investigation maybe wasn't all it seems in his description. What are they claiming then, he's asked? They're claiming that they just discovered these body parts. I know that they searched those tanks thoroughly within the first week, and it was reported in the news. Interesting one there. I know they were searched those tanks thoroughly, and it was reported in the news. So this to me suggests that he might be backing out of what he says there. I know they searched those tanks thoroughly. Like, how does he know they searched those tanks thoroughly unless he was there searching with them or keeping a very close eye on what was going on? And I think he realizes that. And then he says, and it was reported in the news. By the way, it wasn't just my observations that led me to that. It was also, because I followed the case in the news there. The journalist says, would they have missed them? And he says, no. How does he know that? How does he know whatever state things were in, however the tanks are set up or anything like that? How does he know for certain with that one word answer, would they have missed them? No. How does he know that? So you think they were placed thereafter? And he says, no, can't follow the logic there. So neither can the journalist, because he says, what are you saying? And he says, I'm saying that the guards are not being completely forthright with all the elements in this case, because there may be elements that they want to string me up because of my asylum case and what that's all about. So we've got more, I think, building the defense here. But you'll see there that while it might sound like what he's saying is the guards are crooked, you can see it's qualified and weakened to hell with the words he uses. The guards are not being completely forthright with all the elements. It's not the guards are lying. It might not be being completely forthright with all the elements in this case, i.e. they are being forthright with a lot of elements in this case, because there may be, so not definitely, may be elements that they want to string me up because of my asylum case and what that is about. String you up, says the journalist. Now, look, as much as this guy got a hard time in some of the comments, he really is listening and seeing the key stuff that Michael Kelley is saying and zoning in on that. String you up. Yes, the asylum case involves international crime that extends to Ireland, human trafficking. So he is building his defense again here. He's setting out a narrative, but, he's not buttoned down. And remember all that caution? All that being cautious to talk about this, and I can't give you a statement about that, and that's privileged information between me and my solicitor and the guard. That's all out the window when it comes to international crime. For some reason, when it comes to international crime that extends to Ireland, human trafficking, no, he's no caution to the wind, no caution there whatsoever. Caution be damned. I'm going to talk about all that, despite the fact it sounds a hell of a lot more dangerous than just saying, yes, I am a suspect in a murder case. So you think you're being framed, he's asked, and the answer is yes. By who? The journalist says. People who have an interest in organized crime. People who are involved in organized crime have an interest in organized crime. This does not feel very cautious at all. It also doesn't feel very real because people is a dead giveaway. You will notice people in deception all the time. The word people in deception all the time. Oh, people are saying that X, Y, Z. No, they haven't been. It's just someone saying it to you and trying to say that other people have the same thoughts. People who have an interest in organized crime. So again, it's not sounding, it's not organized criminals. People who are involved in organized crime and have an interest in organized crime. He's just lost all caution here. He's asked, are you disgusted by what happened? And he says, yes, absolutely revolted, heartbroken. If anyone in the chat wants to spot one of my favorite words for deception in that answer, then do please put that in the chat. What I will mention, first of all, is we have this repetition of yes. It's not enough to say yes once, to be really, really strident with it and really believed. I'm going to say yes 3 times there. Yes. And then he takes himself out of all of this. There's no pronouns there at all. He doesn't say, I'm absolutely revolted and I'm heartbroken. He takes himself right out of it. He's dropped the pronouns and it is just absolutely revolted, heartbroken. It is just words at that point. It's statements. It's not feeling. Again, he's asked about feelings. Are you disgusted by what happened? And this time he hasn't avoided it in that sort of dodge that he does with the questions. He's taken himself out of the answer at all. Yes. Absolutely revolted, heartbroken, Simi, absolutely. You got it. That is the word. Always, when you see the word absolutely used, I'm not saying everyone who says absolutely is lying. What I am saying is dig in around it and you will very often find deception. And I think that is what we've got there. He's asked, do you feel your own name has been tarnished by this? And yes is the answer. Is there anything else you'd like to say? And he says no. So I've got some conclusions that I'm going to share with you as we go on, but now is the time to get involved and let me know your thoughts or any observations or anything that you have to share. By the way, on the poll at the moment, please vote in the poll, but it's 100% no one believes Michael Kelley's story. So listen, we'll maybe give that another couple of minutes if you'd like to vote in the poll in the live chat. Do you believe Michael Kelley's story? Let's see if anyone is convinced by this guy. So let me go on to my conclusions. Number one, his denials are straightforward, but they're very limited. He denies any involvement. He says yes to the denial. He really doesn't say once that he was not involved in this. It's just that yes to denying any involvement there. So yes, he denies it, but he doesn't say, no, I wasn't involved once in that entire interview. He's really keen to create distance from being questioned about the murder of Michael Gaine. It's all on the record. I'm not going to give you direct answers, and I'm not going to say that. He's really keen to create that distance. This causes him stress. Listen, he leaks the possibility he has more information than he shares. I think especially around knowledge, detailed knowledge of the body parts that are there. I really think it is possible that he has much more information about them than he wants us to believe at this point in the interview. I think we can all agree that I'm not like some word wizard by saying the international crime story is complete and utter bull. It is. There's just no way this guy who is on guard about absolutely everything suddenly will say that he's trying to bring down an organized gang of international criminals. And that's why he's being framed here. No, it's just bull. He was so buttoned down about everything and then very verbose, but not very credibly verbose about this international crime in the asylum that he's seeking. But I think most curiously, there was a strain on his relationship with Michael Gaines. He says it was okay, and then he says he cannot elaborate when it comes to the difficulties that they had between them. So there definitely was some strain on that. And I believe, judging by his focus on housing and houses, I think that this strain was based some way on living arrangements. I do not know. It's just living arrangements. The amount of times that he talks about being homeless and the focus on the home in America and so on, I do think that there was a strain on his relationship, and that was based for some reason on the living arrangements. I only have one comment I wanted to look at, which was Black Widow commenter of the episode. Says that he wasn't just between jobs, he was between houses, which is just a fantastic comment. Thank you very much for that. If anyone has anything else to say, then do drop that in the live chat. Otherwise, replay crew, do get involved in the comments and let me know, and I'll try and get back to you if I have time to do that. Let me be blunt on that one, but I do read everything, so please do that. Otherwise, let's look at the poll. Michael Kelley has convinced no one with his story. 100% of people who voted do think that his story is not believable. That's it. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you soon for something new from Never a Truer Word.